Good morning. We are about to start the program with the soothing sounds of the Indian classical music through Bansuri recital. For this, we have Shri Digvijay Singh Chauhan, who is a well-known Indian classical flautist, Bansuri player, and a dedicated disciple of Padma Vibhushan Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasya ji. He has received his training under the traditional Guru Sishya Parampara at Vrindavan Gurukul, Bhubaneswar. His music reflects the calm and meditative style of the Mahihar tradition of Bansuri, known for pure tone, clear presentation of ragas, and a deeply expressive approach. With him, we have on Tanpura Ms. Ritu Chauhan and on Tabla Shri Vishwaranjan Nanda. I request CGM HR Shri Saroj Kumar Patra and CGM HR Shri Sunil Kumar Mahapatra to welcome the team with Uttariya. Now I request everybody to take their seats and enjoy this enchanting and mesmerizing recital. Thank you.
Respected directors, all employees of NALCO. For us, being a disciple of Vrindavan Gurukul, NALCO is our second home. And we have been with NALCO, or NALCO has been with us since the year 2013. And we are very much lucky to have the support from the NALCO and all the directors and the staff. Today we are going to present a morning melody which is known as Rag Nat Bhairav with a traditional style of Drupad, Alap, Jod, Jala, and then we'll have a composition in the 9 beats known as the Mattal, and then we'll see some beautiful Odia devotional music and Indian devotional music. Thank you so much.
Now we have a small request for devotional music. Why not? Indian classical music is also kind of a devotional music. And whenever we are performing in Bhubaneswar, in Odisha, it is our duty to pay our salute to the Lord Jagannath. So I will present a small recital which is in heart of every Odia individual. And I would request everybody to please sing along with this song.
Suprabhat, good morning and Happy New Year. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to the 23rd edition of the NALCO Foundation Day Lecture Series. This tradition was ignited in 2002 by the People's President, late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Since then, for over 2 decades, this has been a sanctuary of wisdom, which has been graced by brightest minds of our generation. Today, the atmosphere carries a distinct weight. While we have stood in the glow of many stars over the years, we are joined today by a guest who has not just inherited a century-old legacy, but he has reinvented, reshaped it into a potent global force. A leader who believes that while we should be proud of the past, we must constantly ask what to discard and what to strengthen to remain future ready. Ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the 23rd NALCO Foundation Day Lecture Series, please join me in welcoming the incomparable Shri T. Narendran, CEO and Managing Director of Tata Steel. We also have with us our CMD, Shri Brijendra Pratap Singh, Director Production, Shri Pankaj Kumar Sharma, Director PNT, Shri Jagdish Arora, Director HR, Dr. Tapas Kumar Patnaik, Director Finance, Shri Abhay Kumar Beuria, and a galaxy of our former leadership. May I request CGM HR, Shri Saroj Kumar Patra, to escort Shri T. Narendran and Shri Brijendra Pratap Singh to the dais, please. I also request one and all present here to kindly switch off the mobile phones or keep it in silent mode. Thank you. May I request our CMD, Shri Brijendra Pratap Singh, to formally welcome Shri T. Narendran with an Uttariya as a mark of our deep respect. To herald the 23rd edition of this landmark event, let us acknowledge the spirit that binds us. May I request the august gathering to kindly rise for the NALCO anthem, the collective voice of this proud enterprise.
Jaya Jaya NALCO Manam, Jaya Jaya NALCO Ganam, Jaya Jaya NALCO Manam, Jaya Jaya NALCO Ganam, Gagana Pavana Dhana Kanana Kunje, Madhuram NALCO Talam, Atula Vibhavamai Bharata Janani, Safalam Navam Abhiyanam, Madhuram NALCO Manam, Jaya Jaya NALCO Ganam, Tanu Mana Hridayam Nilaya Mitra, Nava Nava Pragati Vilase, Jagrihi Shamadhana, Jagrihi Loka, Suvipula Shilpa Vikase, Safalam Navam Abhiyanam, Madhuram NALCO Manam, Jaya Jaya NALCO Dharani Mandana, Vihasati te mama desaha, Bhavane Bhuvane Gagane Pavane, विलसतु नाल्को विभाषः तव वरणीय सुवेशः प्रसरतु देश विदेशः।
Thank you. I now request our guests on dais to join for the ceremonial lighting of the lamp. I request all directors to kindly join for the lighting of the lamp.
मन का विश्वास कमजोर होना, इतनी शक्ति हमें देना दाता। मन का विश्वास कमजोर होना, हम चले नेक रास्ते पे हमसे भूल कर भी कोई भूल होना, इतनी शक्ति हमें देना दाता। मन का विश्वास कमजोर होना, हम चले नेक रास्ते पे हमसे भूल कर भी कोई भूल होना, इतनी शक्ति हमें देना दाता। मन का विश्वास कमजोर होना।
Thank you, sirs. Mind, like flower, it opens at the right time. And today, the time is just right to open our mind for insightful perspective and visionary ideas. But before we get there, may I request our CMD to welcome our guests and audience with his welcome address.
It's okay, thank you. Shri T. Narendran, CEO and MD Tata Steel, directors on the NALCO board, our ex-CMDs, directors, distinguished guests, members of union, representatives of all trade unions, members of OA, all employees, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. It's my honor and proud privilege to welcome you all on this 23rd lecture day on the occasion of NALCO's 46th Foundation Day. The lecture day is a platform for knowledge exchange for the purpose of learning and innovation. On the occasion of 46th Foundation Day, I extend my deepest appreciation, my wishes to each and every employee of NALCO, both regular and contractual, their family members, and all the stakeholders connected with us. Foundation Day is celebrated to mark the journey of excellence, resilience, and innovation, which has led to the growth of the organization incorporated 46 years back. It is also a tribute to our visionary founders who have founded the company, hard-working employees, and trust of each and every stakeholders connected with us. I will take this opportunity to share with you some of the figures, some of the highlights of the current fiscal year. This fiscal year 25-26, we have almost broken each and every record. If we compare the H1 performance of 25-26 compared to 24-25. Physical performance, alumina production grew by around 23%, metal production grew by around 3%, and the sales volume by around 40% of alumina and 5% of metal. If we see the financial performance, our revenues, H1 25-26 compared to H1 24-25, the revenues grew by around 18%, and the PBT grew by around 47%. We have recorded best ever H1 performance, both in terms of physical and financial. That is the ever best H1 performance in 25-26. And as of now, if we see our 9-month performance, best ever physical performance of alumina production, metal production, and alumina and metal sales. That is the best ever 9-month performance of this year. The performance is linked to the hard work and dedication of each and every employee of NALCO, both regular and contractual. Blessings of our ex-CMDs, directors, and ex-employees, and trust of each and every stakeholders. But improvement is very important. Improvement is a continuous process and an important step for each and every organization. We believe that improvement should be a part of our continuous process, and that will only come when we do a continuous learning. To do the learning, we do a lot of exercises, and for this, as a part of that learning exercise, on occasion of Foundation Day, we organize a lecture series. Today, it's honor for us to have TV Narendran Saab, MD and CEO Tata Steel, who has been associated with Tata Steel since last 35 years, and last 12 years, he is as CEO and MD Tata Steel. He has been a key instrumental figure in transforming the performance of the company. The capacity addition, which we know, the Tata Steel, which is growing. Now the plan is to grow from 22 to 40 million ton with greenfields and brownfield acquisitions. The company, apart from capacity addition, is achieving best ever techno-economic figures in terms of steel production, best ever value-added productions as we compare the other steel industries. The overall cultural transformation of the company also goes to the credit of Narendran Saab. If we see the other areas where the major transformational activities which Shri T Narendran Saab was involved, that is Industry 4.0 and green steel, where the Tata Steel has a major role and a major steps ahead. On behalf of NALCO Collective, I welcome you, sir, and thank you for accepting our invitation and coming here, and thank you for sparing your valuable time, and I am very much sure your deliberations will be a great benefit for all of us here and the areas which you have led for transforming the overall culture and performance of Tata Steel. Once again, my best wishes to each one of you here on occasion of Foundation Day of NALCO. Thank you and good luck and best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. They say that true leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room, but it is being the brightest light. We are in the presence of a titan of a global enterprise who has spent nearly 37 years in turning challenges into catalysts. A titan who believes that leadership is like planting of seeds. If the seeds are sown on time, they will grow at the right time. He has spent his career ensuring that these seeds flourish into structural, cultural, and financial strength. Shri T Narendran is a leader who understands that there is no one-size-fits-for-all leadership style. Having served as the youngest CEO in the history of Tata Steel, and now one of its most veteran, he has navigated the nuances of leading teams across generations, learning when to be direct and when to provide the space. His leadership is defined by agility in crisis, a future-centric mindset, authenticity, and iron-willed determination. An alumnus of IIM Kolkata, Shri Narendran has led a transformative journey that saw Tata Steel grow nearly 10 times in capacity. Under his stewardship, the company has achieved massive financial deleveraging and has been recognized by the World Economic Forum for its lighthouse digital factories. He believes that a company that only talks about its past has no future. He has challenged his organization to ask that what we are doing today is pioneering. His views in his role is not as a fixed position, but as if it is a relay race, ensuring that the baton is passed on to the next generation with the organization in its best, strongest form. Beyond the boardroom walls, he is also a person who loves to play drums, and Beatles being his favorite band. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2007, during the 6th edition of the NALCO lecture series, the steel man of India, Dr. J.J. Irani, held us captivated with his talk on the role of industries in the future development of India. 18 years beyond, we have assembled here to listen to the man for all seasons, also from Tata Steel, delivering the 23rd NALCO Lecture Foundation Day lecture on leadership, the art of transforming. Please join me in welcoming the incomparable Shri T Narendran, CEO and Managing Director of Tata Steel. Sir, the floor is all yours.
Firstly, thank you very much for that very generous introduction. Good morning to all of you, Mr. Brijendra Pratap Singh and all his senior colleagues present and past from NALCO, all other ladies and gentlemen from NALCO and otherwise who are here. My privilege to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Also I want to congratulate all of you on this Foundation Day. I know how important a Foundation Day is. As a company which has been around for more than 100 years, we really like to celebrate these milestones because it tells us the importance of preparing a company which is resilient and can handle the future. I keep telling all my colleagues, both in management and in union, as was mentioned, that it's our responsibility to make sure that in a multi-generational company, we leave a company stronger for the next generation and not leave it weaker, so that many more such foundation days can be celebrated in future. When Mr. Singh invited me to speak and had a word with me, I asked him, what do you want me to speak about? So he said, talk a little bit on the global environment and the metals industry and things like that, and maybe on the transformation or anything on leadership. So hence this topic, because it's not about what I did or what has been done during my time in Tata Steel, but one of the reasons why Tata Steel has been around for more than 100 years is it has constantly transformed itself. And when I talk about transformation, it is more about the transformation that I have witnessed in Tata Steel in my last 37 years, including the time when I was in charge, but also before the time when I was in charge, when, early days when I was in the trenches, as well as when I was in middle management, and then when I got this role. But before that, I think, given that you and I both are in the metal space, I think it's very important to understand what's happening globally, how could it impact us, what are the opportunities that could come our way, and what should we look out for before we start discussing how do we transform organizations. So I would assume, I don't know the numbers for the aluminum industry, but if I look at the steel industry, we produce about 1.8 billion tons of steel globally, and about 400 million tons of steel flows across borders. I think the aluminum industry must be about 50, 60 million tons or something like that. How much? 60, and I don't know how much of it is traded. A lot of it moves around across borders, yeah. So, you know, for a long time, countries could be focused on what's happening in that country and not be bothered about what's happening globally. I remember in one of my first visits to the US, maybe in the early 90s, I was quite surprised to see that many people in the US didn't have a passport. Many senior people in the US didn't have a passport because they never felt the need to have to travel outside the US, right? And there were many people in the US on the East Coast who had not been to the West Coast. People in the West Coast had not been to the East Coast. Or people in the Midwest stayed in the Midwest. So it was the largest economy in the world, but it could just be looking at itself. Even more recently, I was in New York maybe 6 months back at a function where I was speaking, and before me was someone from the metal space, a well-known CEO, I don't want to name him, who was speaking before me. And he was very critical of the metals industry in China and India, saying they are dirty, they are bad, they are this, they are that. And so I was going to speak after him, and as I was walking off and we introduced ourselves to each other, I asked him, have you been to India or China? He had never been to India or China, right? But he's making all these comments based on what he's heard, read, etc., right? Well, that's a luxury you can afford, or you could afford, but I don't think that's a luxury you can afford today. Today, you have to be geopolitically aware. You know, geopolitical intelligence or whatever is something all organizations and leaders should have. When people ask me, how can you be in the same company or same industry for 37 years? One of the reasons I'm around is every day is a different day, because we are a geopolitically connected industry. So whatever happens, if President Trump has a problem with Mexico or with EU, that has an impact on us, because Tata Steel has operating units in EU and we sell to Mexico and to the US. Something happens in China, that impacts us, right? So to me, geopolitics is not something which is nice to know, it is something which is essential to know for organizations and for leaders. And this is also because of the second reason, which is trade. You know, global trade has become such an important part. I mean, over 100 years, supply chains have been optimized across the world based on cost efficiencies, right? When shipping started, you could locate anything anywhere. When containerized shipping started, it became even more efficient to move materials around, right? So for over 100 years, you optimized value chain, saying that whatever part of my value chain is to be located, you know, where I can get cost competitiveness, I will locate it there. I spent a few years in the Middle East when we were setting up the Tata Steel office there, and I was just telling Mr. Singh that some of my customers were Dubai Aluminium and Aluminium Bahrain, right? Why were aluminium industries being set up in the Middle East? There's no bauxite there, there's no market there, or there was not much of a market. It was because energy costs were low, right? So globally, you set up production units where it made more sense. And that went on for a long time. That was the reason for success of many, what we used to call Asian tigers, which was Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, etc. And then China came into the act, and you know, China started developing. When I passed out of college, I keep telling people when I go and speak in colleges, when I passed out of college, nobody talked of China. I passed out of college in 1988. Nobody talked of China. China was not on the radar, right? But I did not know how much China would be part of my daily life for the next, at least for the last 20 years, if not for the whole 37 years, right? So to me, global trade, geopolitics has become a very, very important part of it. And the world assumed that once China joins the WTO, they will politically also transform into something like a Western liberal democracy, which didn't happen, right? And suddenly the world, I mean, to some extent, China says they deserve the credit for keeping inflation low over the last 20 years because they could export stuff which was cheap. But on the flip side, there's a hollowing out of the manufacturing sector across the world, right? Particularly in the Western world. And which has manifested itself into the political outcomes that we are seeing, a push against global trade, a push against immigration, a lot more nativism and things like that, right? So world trade, geopolitics has significant consequences on many things, the political outcomes, the corporate outcomes, the corporate impact, investment flows, so on and so forth. So we cannot, I think, as organizations and as individuals, as leaders or aspiring leaders, I think having a sense of what's happening in the world around us is something extremely important, right? The other part, which is apart from geopolitics and trade, two other issues which are becoming more and more relevant is one is technology, both in terms of digital and otherwise, and the other part is sustainability. We talked about green steel, right? So to me, technology, when I started working, it was a time when computers were just making its entry into the corporate world, right? I mean, pretty much everyone was going on strike saying computers will take away jobs, right? That was the reality that we used to deal with in 1988, 89. I tell people, when I used to work in Tata Center in Calcutta, there was a room which was as big as this, which had typists, right? It was a typist pool, right? You write a letter, give it, they'll type it, give it to you after 2 days. You know, that used to be the way it used to work. None of us, I didn't know how to use a keyboard or use a computer, right? But then suddenly the computer became an accessory, something to supplement your productivity, not to take away your job, but to make you more productive. Some jobs went away, the typist pool went away, but the quality of jobs of the assistants improved. They were no longer taking dictations, right, or typing out letters, they were doing other things, right? And then the internet came and so on and so forth. So I think technology is there to stay, will come, it's best to adapt to it, rebuild our skill set, etc., rather than fight it, because this has happened all through the history of the world, right? Maybe more in the last 100 years than before. So to me, that changed, and now it's more with AI. Again, the same conversations that I heard 30 years back, 35 years back is happening. AI will take away jobs, AI will do this, it will. But people who use AI will do better than people who don't use AI. I remember in the late 90s when we implemented SAP in Tata Steel, a lot of salespeople left the job because they couldn't use a computer and key in the data on SAP, which was very important if you were a sales guy at that time, right? So unless you adapt, you will be left behind. So that is also important, right? So technology, this kind of transition, and we are just at the early stages of AI, the amount of money which is being spent on AI is incredible. The capital investment in AI-related investments is at least $500 to $600 billion a year, right? That's the scale of investment in AI. So whether those companies will survive, are they wasting their money, the valuation is too high, they are fringe discussions. The most important discussions are how is AI going to change your personal life and professional life, and what are you doing to be ready for that, right? So that is to me the third thing which we should, apart from geopolitics and trade, technology and how it's going to impact our life for the future is something to be thought of. The fourth is sustainability. Again, there are different degrees of commitment just now, right? The current US government is not committed. They feel it's being blown out of proportion. The EU feels it is very important, right? But the reality is there to stay. I mean, all of us are seeing more and more extreme we are dealing with, right? The social license to operate should not be taken for granted. Maybe today in India there's not that much of pressure, but don't wait for it to come. 5 years back, nobody in Netherlands was putting this pressure on us. Today there's so much pressure on us, right? So society will change very fast. You're already seeing more and more impatience about the AQI quality in India, right? So these things will come really to fore, and as industries we can't ignore that. So whether it's climate change or the health impact of economic development, whatever it is, I think is the fourth thing to really watch out for. The fifth thing to watch out at a global level is, and at a local level, is rising inequality. You know, oftentimes, even when we say GDP per capita in India has grown from X to Y, it's gone to $2,000 or $3,000, and it'll go to $12,000. We feel good, and rightly so. But we are not looking at the inequality, and which is happening in the West as well, right? One of the reasons why you see the political outcomes that you're seeing in the West is because a large part of the middle class or the lower middle class feels that they're left out of this development, right? They feel that most of the benefits of development has gone to the rich, the top 10% of society, right? And it's like somebody described to me the difference between, the mean and the median. You know, any of you are mathematically inclined, you would know this from your first lessons, right? So they're saying it's like if Bill Gates walks into a pub, then will you say everyone there is, which drives people and drives innovation, etc. But how do you also make sure that, we share the spoils? And that's why it's very important for all of us, particularly those of us who are operating in some of the poorer parts of the country, to keep doing CSR. I mean, Tata Steel has been doing CSR well before it became a law. I mean, we've been doing much more than the 2% we are required to spend for many years, right? Because we think that's the right thing to do, not because somebody is asking us to do it, right? And that is why we are still around after 100 years in some of the poorest parts of the country and continuing to grow, because we have built that trust and equity with society. So inequality is also not something that can or should be ignored. So these are some of the things which I think needs to be kept in mind as we look at organizations, as we look at our future, as we look at our own companies and plan our future. So, but this is all about the external elements of what can impact our operation, right? So when I talk of transformation, I'll talk more about what should we need to do internally. But now, how do we as leaders and organizations keep our antenna up to get a sense of what's happening in the external world? I think that is important, because if you're tone deaf, if you're not blinkered, you're only focused on day-to-day operational matters as leaders, then you're doing a disservice to your organization. You know, the Japanese had a very good way of saying policy management and daily management. You know, Tata Steel has been a winner of the Deming Prize and the Deming Grand Prize. So whenever we used to engage with the assessors, they used to ask us leaders, how much time do you spend on policy management? And how much time do you spend on daily management, right? So if as a leader, you're spending all your time running the business on a day-to-day basis, there's a problem, right? Either your processes are not strong enough, you've not developed the right people, you're not delegating correctly, right? As a leader, your job is to think about the future. Of course, be there if there's a problem to solve which needs your intervention, right? But not be there doing jobs which people below you can do, maybe better than you, right? So how do you then create those conditions where the right people in the organization do the right jobs and everyone is not trying to do the same job? And how are you as leaders looking around, looking for all these signals? What are those mega trends which will impact me tomorrow, which will impact me after? And it need not be just the CEO or the top leadership team. I tell all the functional leaders, if you are in charge of supply chain, what is the future of supply chain? How does technology impact your supply chain? Can you use some of the principles of quick commerce for your supply chain, in a manufacturing supply chain? I know that Tata Motors is using some Q-commerce companies to deliver spares to warehouses, I mean to workshops quickly, right? So there are many things we can learn from other industries, right? So are you as your functional leader, if you're a maintenance guy, what can you learn from maintenance from other industries? What can you learn about maintenance from the airline industry, where there's no room to fail, right? What can you learn from the oil and gas industry? Or what can you learn safety from the oil and gas industry? Or construction practices from oil and gas industry? So there's so much to learn from other industries. And so I think as leaders, we should always be thinking about the future of what we are doing. And leader doesn't just mean the person in the board or the CEO. I'm talking of leadership at all levels should start thinking. That's how you will grow as a leader, if you keep thinking about the future. Of course, make sure that today's work is done. But develop your team to do that today's work so that you can think about tomorrow's work, right? So that is important. So to me, as organizations, as leaders, having that antenna up, getting a sense of what's happening around us, translating that into how does it impact my day-to-day job is all very important. Organizations can have good risk management systems, and we have in Tata Steel a good risk management committee of the board, which is always looking at what are the long-term risks, short-term risks, right? And how do you deal with it? How is the organization being prepared for it? What are the resources we are committing to it, right? So that risk is handled strategically. Risk management is not one meeting which you do on the side. It is a way you run your business. It is a way you think about your business, and that's where you pick up. Even when you think of strategic planning, there's a lot of criticism of strategic planning, saying that, hey, you know, in today's dynamic world, there's no room for strategic planning. I don't know what will happen 3 months from now, but that's just an excuse, right? Strategic planning is not about deciding a strategy today and not deviating from it for the next 5 years or whatever. Strategic planning is the ability to think about the future, plan for the future. If you plan for 10 things, maybe 7 things will happen. At least you're more ready for that. And then you can focus on the 3 you have not planned for, right? But if you don't do any planning, you're starting to do all 10 things from scratch, right? So that is not, I mean, one of the doyens of strategic thinking, Henry Mintzberg, talks about this. He gives it a theoretical framework where he says that there may be a strategy which is a deliberate strategy, which can emerge from what is intended. But there is an unrealized strategy and there is an emergent strategy which comes from things changing around, right? So if you did a strategy document last year or 2 years back, you would not have thought about the impact we are seeing today of global trade. But then you would have thought of many other things which you're working on. Like even if I take a Tata Steel example, yeah, digital transformation, transformation to green steel, we've been working at it for the last few years. So we can focus more on the trade issues today. We are not focusing on that because that's already part of our plan, right? So I think these organizational ability to understand what's happening, being prepared for that. See, any of you who watch sports, you will know the best sports people seem to have a lot of time. They never look hurried. Whether it's Messi in football or Sachin Tendulkar in cricket or Roger Federer in tennis, they never look hurried because they are that fraction of a second, they are ahead. They think ahead, they plan ahead, right? So they're able to execute very well, right? So organization should be like that. How can I anticipate what's going to happen? At least some of what is going to happen. I cannot anticipate everything, but if I can anticipate, if I get better and better at it, at least maybe I can anticipate 60-70% of what's going to happen. And then be prepared for it. So I have all my energy and resources to focus on the balance 30% which I had not anticipated. So this is a context I want to lay out before I get into the transformation, which is a little bit more internal focusing, right? So bottom line is, look at the larger picture, what's happening globally. Don't think of ourselves as an industry, as a country, even India, you know, we are in a great spot, right? This kind of GDP growth, I mean, no other country is having, right? So it's a great journey. But we should not assume that if the rest of the world is having lots of problems, we will continue to grow at 7%. Right? It will have an impact on us, somewhere or the other. So we have to plan for that. Right? And it should not be taken that we are entitled to this growth. This growth has come after a lot of hard work, will continue with a lot of hard work. Similarly as companies. Right? So we should not assume that we can grow in isolation because it's an integrated world. You know, something or the other will play out. So now, when you look at all this, so having a view of what's happening around you, preparing yourself as an individual, as a leader, as an organization for that, I think is a very important part of being ready for the future. Now, when I come to transformation itself, I'll explain it in the context of what I have seen in Tata Steel over the last 37 years. So there could be multiple reasons why you need to do a transformation, right? One type of transformation is triggered by some events external to us, which creates an existential problem, that if you don't do anything, the company will die, right? You're on a burning platform. So you don't have a choice but to transform. I think that is what I saw in Tata Steel in the early 90s, when Dr. Irani, who I believe spoke at the Foundation Day here some time back, when Dr. Irani had just taken over as a CEO, 1991, the budget had come, opened up the economy. Tata Steel was producing 2 million tons of steel and 3 million tons of mining with 80,000 people, and pretty much most of the plant was old because till then we were not allowed to build new facilities without permissions, license, so on and so forth, and a lot of restrictions. And suddenly you had a lot of new players coming in which didn't have those legacy costs, which didn't have those legacy issues, who are not running townships like we were, and building facilities, and we had to compete with them, right? So that is one type of crisis which led to a transformation which I'll talk about. In the 2000, between 90 and 2000, we did that transformation very successfully, which I'll explain. And then we went into a phase where we became EVA positive, we were financially reasonably strong, but the industry was going through a lot of change. It was scaling up. Tata Steel was very profitable, but the 55th largest steel company in the world, right? And we wanted to grow. We signed MOUs in Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, but all of us know how long it takes to build a greenfield site, get a greenfield site started. And then you had what was happening globally. Lakshmi Mittal was going around acquiring companies cheap. You had 100 million ton steel companies. We were less than 4 million at that time, maybe 3 million or something. And then we decided to grow inorganically and we acquired companies overseas. That was the second period of transformation where it was not that there was a burning platform, but there was an opportunity and there was a need to scale up. So for an organization which had spent almost 100 years being a single site plant, suddenly to become global, acquire plants, integrate plants, and Tata Steel was again a company where people joined like me and then retired, spent all their life, plus we had 5th and 6th generation employees. So it was a very insular company, and suddenly to go and say we'll acquire companies across was a big transformation. The then CEO, Mr. Muthuraman, led that transformation, and of course the global crisis happened, various things happened. Last 15 years, where Mr. Nirukar was there before me and I took over about 12 years back, was more about how do you prepare for the future, because by 2015 we knew that our iron ore mines, which was a big source of our competitiveness, would go up for auctions in 2030. So we knew by 2015 that unless we, get leaner and fitter by 2030, we will have a problem, right? We also saw what was happening in the digitization journey. We saw what was happening on sustainability. A lot of discussions, the Paris Accord, etc., COP, etc., happened after that, immediately after that. So we saw all these things happening. So the last 10, 15 years is more about transforming, not because you had a fire, not because you're going to die, but because if you did not, and in Europe where we had 10 million tons of steel making capacity, the laws were changing, right? If you didn't do anything, you would pay a bigger and bigger carbon tax every year. So we knew that we had to transform to be future ready. So it was not about a fire today, it was not about something else, but about convincing people that please transform today, otherwise you will have a problem 15 years from now or 10 years from now. And bringing that urgency is the challenge there, right? People say, okay, some people say, okay, 2030, I will also retire by 2030, so I can say that it's somebody else's problem, right? Or someone will say, theek hai, time hai. So that, but how do you create that sense of urgency? So that again, that's where we say it's important. It's not for me important what I do during my tenure, but how is the organization after my tenure? Then I've done a good job. Not that I did a great job when I was a boss and then after that the company struggled. That's not okay, right? So all of us as leaders have a responsibility to make sure that we leave behind a strong organization with a strong team, right? That's a responsibility, particularly for organizations which have been around for a long time. So what are the steps that you need to do to drive transformation, right? So first and foremost, I think you should set a goal, right? So when in the 90s, I remember when we were in this state, Dr. Irani said that, okay, we should aim to become the lowest cost producer of steel in the world, okay, which seemed a very distant goal, almost an impossible goal, right? But that goal was defined, right? In the 2000s, we said we should, scale up, we should become one of the biggest steel companies in the world. So during that period, we moved from the 55th largest to the 10th largest, right? And more recently, we set goals saying that our EBITDA margin should be 25%, even if our raw materials are at market prices, so that we are, in some sense, prepared for 2030 when our raw material prices will be much higher than what it is today. So you need to define those goals because people will know something to change. When we did the digital transformation, we said we need to take out $2 billion in costs through productivity improvements, use of technology, etc. So I think it's good to have a goal because that helps focus people. Otherwise, it just becomes lots of words, lots of ambition, aspiration, and nobody knows whether you've reached that aspiration or not, right? So I think it's important, firstly, to define the goal. Second thing is to make sure that how do you get the stakeholders on board. I remember in the 90s, the union leaders were taken to all the most productive steel plants in the world. They went and saw Nippon Steel, POSCO, Thyssen, all these companies, saw what is the productivity level on the shop floor, so that they could come back. We had an ESS package at that time, and during that decade, we reduced the workforce from 80,000 to 40,000 without a strike, because Tata Steel has a rich history of no industrial problems since 1929. I don't know how many of you know that 1925 labor agreement was brokered by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who was the president of the Tata Workers Union at that time, right? He was sent by Gandhiji in the 20s because Tata Steel had a lot of strikes between 1920 and 29. And Gandhiji said India's first industrial experiment should not fail. And he said Netaji, he was he worked with the Tata Workers Union and was the president from 1925 to 29. And he signed this, brokered this agreement between management and union, and we've not had a strike since then. And in 2004, when we were celebrating 75 years of that, President Abdul Kalam, who was the president, came. Normally, the president of India doesn't go for a private company function, but he came saying this is part of the industrial history of Tata Steel. So it's an organization which has a rich So it's an organization which has a rich history of industrial peace. So when Dr. Irani said that we need to bring down the workforce by half, the question was how would you do it without getting the buy-in of the union leadership? And to be fair, the Tata Workers Union is also very, how do I describe it, shows a lot of leadership. I mean, because both of us agree that we need to make sure the company needs to be there for the future, right? So always, union asks the management, what are the tough decisions you are taking? And management asks the union, what are the tough decisions you are taking? I fully respect that unions have a tougher job because I tell my colleagues in management, we don't get elected to our jobs, they get elected, right? So they have to be considerate to their stakeholders, right? So we have to understand that and then see how can we together work to find a solution that can work for the long-term future of the company, not for individuals' benefit and things like that, right? So we have that history. So we work like that. So the unions came on board. They saw the productivity in other steel plants and they worked with the management then to say, how do we plan the transition over 10 years? Even now, when we are preparing for 2030, this is a conversation with our unions, which we started in 2015, saying we have time till 2030. You may not be around, I may not be around, but doesn't matter. How do we transition and help the company by 2030 to be ready for the period beyond 2030? Otherwise, people will look back and say, these guys did nothing. And that's why we are suffering, right? So to me, when you talk of transformation, you need to make sure the stakeholders are on board. You need to get them on board. It may take time, but don't take their commitment for granted. You have to earn that commitment, right? Even when we did the digital transformation, many of my senior colleagues were not convinced. They said, okay, this is a buzzword. What is there to be done? But we send them. We send them everywhere, saw how companies in the West, whether it's in Europe or US, were using digital technologies, how it was changing the way they worked. Then they came back convinced. When we were doing the sustainability, the green steel transition, we used to earlier send 1 or 2 people every year to Cambridge Institute of Sustainability for training. It was very expensive, so we could only afford to send 1 or 2 people. Then we said, let's get them here. So we got the faculty from there and we trained our top 300 leaders at that time on sustainability and green, including the 20 top union leaders. So they also saw what was happening, why it was important to understand the transition, right? So I think getting the stakeholders on board is very important because ultimately transformation cannot be driven just by the CEO. Transformation has to be driven at all levels in the organization, both bottom up and top down. And that is important and it takes some time to do that, but you cannot achieve transformation without doing that, right? So to me, that is the second part. The third part is to have a very strong team to run it. In Tata Steel, always the best people were picked to run transformation. Pretty much most of us in the leadership team in Tata Steel have driven some transformation project at some point in time, right? I was involved in the supply chain transformation from 98 to 99, where we went around the world, saw how supply chains were run, what should be Tata Steel's design of supply chain, and we implemented. So similarly, all my senior colleagues have driven some transformation, 1 or 2 years. So you need to put your people who you think have potential, who have talent. It's a great way to learn. And it's not that forever they're there. Spend 2-3 years there, come back and do some other jobs. So that's another way of firstly giving the signal this is important. It's not that somebody is free, so send him into that program. No, your best people should go into that program and then bring them back. So best people will like to go. They know that that's a stepping stone to future growth. And at the same time, if you don't have high quality resources involved in transformation, transformation will not have it. So having a strong program office and driving transformation is very important for its success. The fourth point is, it should be, like I said, both bottom up and top down. When we did the digital journey, we went to the shop floor and we picked up ideas from the shop floor. So that it was not just about, so initially the concern was, oh, jobs will go. But then people saw, it's about how can I make your life on the shop floor easier using technology. So somebody in our rolling mill did not have to walk till the control room to check the temperature of the furnace. He could just point his phone at the furnace and get the temperature, right? For him, technology saved him from walking 200 yards to find out the temperature, right? Similarly, in our pipe division, they used to, because the pipes were sold per piece, after the truck is loaded, somebody used to put some straws and count how many pipes. The whole process of loading a truck and dispatching used to take hours. But then with technology, just take a photograph and it'll tell you how many pipes are there, right? So then people saw that technology was helping them on the shop floor. It was not about, like I said, it was not about replacing their job, but saving time in their job, making their job more productive so that they could do other things, right? So it has to be bottom up as well as top down. Then you will have the buy-in. You're not trying to convince everyone. It's not seen as the CEO's read a book and so he's now driving something. No, it is seen as something which is immensely valuable. The fourth point is, how do you then persevere? Because these things take time. And that depends on the organizations. I keep saying in Tata Steel, any transformation program takes 3 to 5 years before it becomes a habit, right? Like culture of continuous improvement, which was set in the 90s, is not a transformation program now. It was a transformation program in the 90s. Today it is a culture, right? So any transformation program should translate into a change in culture, which becomes then the way you work, right? It is not about driving a program. So that is how, even digitization today is the way we work, okay? Now AI is something which is in a transformation program because people are again understanding the subject. We also have what we call reverse mentors. I have a mentor who is 24 years old in Tata Steel. He's teaching me AI, right? Similarly, when we did digitization also, I had someone who was less than 30 years old teaching me digitization. All the senior leaders have reverse mentors. Okay, these people know that subject better than us. Just because I'm the leader doesn't mean I know more than everyone else on everything, right? And this also helps us connect with the younger demographic in the organization because they feel that they are able to work with the leadership team, right? So we have this reverse mentoring program as well. So these are things which help us translate what is a transformation into changing it and making it a part of the way we work. And the other point, last point I want to make is also how do we learn from other industries? I referred to that. I mean, a lot of changes in Tata Steel have come from what we've learned from other industries. In the 90s, we learned from Citibank on credit management systems. We learned at that time Modi Xerox was seen as a benchmark on service. We learned keeping customer service levels from Modi Xerox, right? More recently, we went to the airline industry to learn maintenance, right? So we go to we learned distribution and retail, which we've developed. Today, it's a 15,000 crore business for Tata Steel. We learned from the FMCG companies, from Hindustan Lever and companies like that. In fact, many of our distributors were distributors of FMCG products when we made this transition. So one is you can learn from others in the industry, but don't limit yourself to, what is in your industry, because to a lot of functions you can learn from other industries, right? I give the example of quick commerce, right? So there are so many, or even customer, I tell our supply chain folks, if today when I order on Amazon or Blinkit or Zomato, if I know exactly where the material is, if I order on Zomato, I know it's in the kitchen, it is being transferred, it's at your door, there is that. If somebody orders steel on me, why can't I know that? Why can't I know that it is being scheduled for production next week? Why can't I know that it is produced, it's waiting for dispatch? Why can't I know that it's on a rake on its way to Nagpur? Why can't I know that it's on its way from Nagpur to Indore in a truck? Because all the data is available. It's just that it is not integrated enough. Because we work out the systems. But you have to ask 10 questions to find this out. But if I'm a customer, if I key in my order number, why can't I get this information? Right? So that is a way for me to ensure that my customer buys steel from me because of the experience. And not that because I'm the cheapest steel, because that's the easiest way to sell steel. Sell it cheaper than everyone else. Right? But how do I make sure that the customer buys from me because he wants to buy from me, because the customer experience is the best that any steel company is giving, right? So when you drive transformation, you need to really translate it into actions, initiatives, projects, measure it, get the buy-in of the people down the line, because a transformation program should not be like you put your foot on the accelerator, the minute you take your foot off, the transformation stops, right? It should be something where it becomes autopilot. It becomes the way the organization moves forward. So I think I've spoken more than I was supposed to, but anyway, I think it's an interesting subject. So, and I did want to share my experience so far. I mean, NALCO celebrating its 46th year, right? 46th Foundation Day. Wish you many, many more Foundation Days. And I think the best way to ensure that is to make sure that you continuously transform. Don't think it is just the responsibility of people sitting in the front row. I think everyone in the organization needs to have a commitment to transform the organization, because honestly, I tell people the most important layer in the organization is the middle layer, because most of the organization only sees them, They don't see the leaders day in and day out. They don't deal with them day in and day out, right? So the mid-level is to me the most important part of any transformation in the organization, because they are the touch points for the rest of the organization. And they need to be committed to it. You need to get their commitment into it, and then constantly transform and make sure that you continue to do well in the future. So thank you once again for inviting me, and congratulations once again.
Thank you, sir. John Maxwell has said that a leader is a one who knows the way, who goes the way, and who shows the way. Sir, you have shown us that transformation is not just a change in form, but a change in spirit. Be it the awareness of geopolitical situation, risk management, strategic planning, adopting digital and technological transformations, preparedness of organization for the future, or transformations reflected through the growth of Tata Steel at all levels of leadership. Your words offered the clarity of a builder and the wisdom of a statesman. You showed us that leadership is like a careful gardener tending to a historic estate where every tree is important, respecting the ancient trees that provide the garden's identity, but also planting new resilient seeds to ensure the estate thrives for the generations yet to come. Words indeed are not enough to capture your gratitude, sir. As a token of our immense gratitude and affection, I request our CMD to present a memento to Shri Narendran. Thank you, sir. We are deeply grateful, sir, that you have carved out time from your demanding schedule to be with us today. Thank you, sir. May I now request our Director HR, Shri Tapas Kumar Patnaik, to deliver a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Esteemed guest of the day, Shri T.V. Narendran sir, CEO and MD Tata Steel, respected CMD NALCO, Shri Brijendra Pratap Singh, Board of Directors of NALCO Board, former CMDs, directors, guests from various industries, government machineries, representatives from associations, unions, all employees, press and media personnel, and other associates present here. A very good afternoon to all of you, and Happy New Year to all of you and your families. I feel privileged to propose the vote of thanks today in this August function. At the outset, I extend my sincere and heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Shri T.V. Narendran sir, for delivering an inspiring and thought-provoking lecture on the topic Leadership, the Art of Transforming. Sir, your profound insights drawn from rich experience and lived leadership have not only enriched our understanding of transformational leadership, but also have left us with valuable lessons. We are truly honored by your presence, and grateful for the time and wisdom you have shared with us, sir. I extend my sincere thanks to CMD sir, all our directors, senior officers, representative of associations and unions, all employees of NALCO, and all participants for their enthusiastic presence and engagement, which truly reflect the spirit of learning and excellence that defines our organization. It is heartening to note that having a deep sense of belongingness to the company, many former CMDs, directors, and other NALCOians are with us today. We always say, once a NALCOian, always a NALCOian. I, on behalf of NALCO and on my personal behalf, reciprocate your feelings with equal warmth. I thank you all for your august presence in this function. We are also thankful to the guests from various industries, government machineries, academic institutions, media, and our NALCO collectives as a whole for attending this function and making it a grand success. A special thanks to all our stakeholders and the media persons for marking another eventful day in the history of the company. I also sincerely acknowledge my appreciation to the efforts put in by the organizing team for making this annual event a grand success. Thank you once again, one and all. Jai Hind, Jai NALCO.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this edition to a close, our profound thanks to Shri T. Narendran, to our leadership for their stewardship, and most importantly, to all of you. You are the heartbeat of this tradition. As we depart with a blueprint, let us carry forward the spirit of today's discourse in our own spheres of influence. We look forward to welcoming you again for the next edition. Until then, we wish you a continued success and the best of health. Please join us for lunch to continue the conversation. Happy New Year and have a great day. Thank you.